All right, folks. Thought I'd make another video for you guys. Had a cruise tuning video, had some background noise in it. I forgot to go back and update it, make a better one. Somebody happened to point it out on YouTube that they didn't want to watch it because of all the background noise. Understandable. I just forgot to update it, so forget who it was that reminded me, but appreciate the reminder. Um, this one I'm just gonna try and wrap up into mass airflow sensor and speed density as far as the cruise tuning. That's the easiest part of uh, tuning with Ecmlink. But basically, to get that done, we've got to get as much information for cruise as we can, or for a closed loop, which is during cruise. We're trying to get our fuel trims as close to zero, either idle and cruise at all times. So but we've got to get as much information so the ECU knows where to plot those fuel adjustments as far as that's concerned. I have a lot of people that send me logs. Let me see if I can find a portion. It may look like this. If we're looking at our throttle position, maybe 7-10%, something like this is, all throughout the log. Excuse me, my buddy Sean from Atlanta sent me this one, not for this particular purpose of what we're doing here, but I'm just using it for the video. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. He did a good job of getting a bunch of cruise in. Was between 0 and 50%. And I guess to start off, first things first, when we start to do cruise tuning, because we're trying to keep it an open or a closed loop as long as we can, we're going to go to our open loop thresholds tab and direct access. And we're going to change our load factor. We're raising it up as far as that's concerned. You can either hit your control button and hold the arrow down to get them all zeroed out and raise them up. And I usually get them to about 1.4 or so. Okay. You can either do it that way, then right click and copy and paste it to this tab right here. Paste it and it'll do the same thing. Or what you can do, hit your shift button down, hit your right arrow, highlight it all. You can right click. When you right click, you can set values to, and then just put in what you want. So put 1.4, there we go. Okay, and that's what I normally like to do, is a little bit faster. Right click and do the same thing on this one, set values to, and I'll put 50% throttle. Okay, so anything below our 1.4 as far as load factor, which is this value right here, and anything lower than a 50% throttle position, so long as both of these are below that parameter, we're going to stay in closed loop. The exception to that rule, letting off the throttle after you're in it and you go let off, or parameters being outside of that, whether it be coolant temp, airflow being too low, whatever the case. But generally speaking, we're going to be up to temp. We're going to have correct airflow and so on. Get those parameters where we need to do, or where they need to be. So setting these parameters here, we'll copy the ECU. Okay. And after we're done with this, we want to remember to go back and set it all back to stock values, or maybe where you had it. You don't want to leave it this high, because then the ECU is going to always be targeting 14.7 AFR. Maybe run lean when you're not really wanting to. You don't want to do any damage to the engine. So remember, after you're done with this whole step, as far as trying to get your driving and all your information, set this back the way you had it. So okay, so here we are. We're driving throughout. You'll see his trims are kind of on the negative side at cruising speeds here, somewhat. And that's what we're trying to fix. We're trying to get it around the 0%. Okay. Let me just take the wideband parameter off of here so I can see a little bit better. That's better. So, and we'll take off our MAFS sensor. Really don't need all that, but especially for this particular purpose, we can see all the parameters down here, so we don't have to have a million lines up here. But I'm just shrinking it down. I'll spread it out. So, but you can see it's driving along. It's on and off again a little bit. Kind of want to keep it a little bit more steady, but he does pretty good overall, keeping in this section right here, keeping it where it needs to be. And so long as you're seeing a 1 here for closed loop. If you're logging your closed loop, some people have closed loop and open loop. Some people just have open loop and not closed loop. I just use closed loop. So if I see a 1, I know I'm in closed loop. I see a 0, I'm thinking 0 or an O for open. But what we want to see is a 1 here, okay, while we're in the throttle, okay. So if you start getting in the throttle just a little bit too much, let's say right here, we're getting in the throttle, now we're O, O for open. That's where it tells me to let off the throttle some, okay. You went wide open throttle, so obviously it's going to go into open loop here. If you're not familiar with the terminology that I'm using, I have another video speaking about closed loop, open loop, fuel trims, and so on. You may want to watch that one first so you can get a grasp of what I'm talking about here. But anyway, just give it just enough gas so that you're in closed loop, anything from 0 all the way up to 50% and a whole bunch of variations in between. Okay, we're not wanting to just stay just at 50%, not at just at 0%. We want a whole bunch of fluctuations in between. Don't want to go out on a highway and just keep your throttle steady. We're trying to help the ECU to learn, so we want a bunch of variation as far as your throttle position is concerned, so it knows where to put the plots at for those particular load factors and fuel ratios. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to tune it. If you're staying at a steady speed, you're not helping the ECU to learn. So anyway, that being said, after you've got this nice long log, I generally tell people to go out for about 20-30 minutes or so, doing one log, then come back, and when you're done, you right click it. Okay, and we're going to start with mass airflow sensor. This is speed density, but for the purposes of this video, it'll do both. Okay, so do MAFS comp adjust. Okay, and for mass airflow sensor, guys, this is for you. It's going to put your plots here, all these little white dots, and all you're going to use template. Okay, and then you want to get all your lines somewhat reasonable. You don't want to have a bunch of up or down. You want to have a nice smooth line. Okay, so get it somewhat smooth, and you can fine tune this down the road. We're just trying to get a relatively good area of what we're looking for as far as that's concerned. And then you go back and adjust it as need be, but we want to have it close. We don't want to have one line way up here. See what I'm saying? It's out of place. So we want to get it where it's reasonable as far as that's concerned. Then you just copy all the ECU and then just go from there. Okay, and then after you're done, go back, set this back to stock or where you had it, and then just go work on your wide open throttle from there. Okay. So that being said, that was for the mass airflow sensor, guys. Whether it's a stock mass airflow sensor or a GM MAF, that's what you have to do there. Okay. If you're speed density, you do the same exact thing. I generally do it after I do my idle and wide open throttle. Then I come back and start worrying about my cruise after the fact. Okay. So I'm trying to get mass airflow sensor. Guys, you may want to get your idle, then start dealing with the cruise, and then wide open throttle, speed density. I do idle, start working on my wide open throttle, and then I'll start worrying about my drivability. Reasons for that, I'll discuss that later in another video if y'all are really concerned why, but it's just easier just to get your idle, then your wide open throttle, then come back and work on your cruise as far as your drivability. So just for me personally anyway. So if you're on a dyno, it might be a different matter, but generally we're talking about for street driving. So anyway, so you're done with your log. You're going to come back in your log screen, right click, and instead of the MAFS comp adjust this time we're going to go to SDVE adjust, the one with combined fuel trim. This one right here, if I remember right, this is for people who are trying to dial in speed density with a mass airflow sensor. Honestly, I've never even dealt with that, either dealing with mass airflow sensor or speed density. But so I'm not even going to discuss this because as many cars as I've tuned, I've never had a single person having to try and do this. It would be so rare that anybody would do it. They're either mass airflow sensor or speed density. I'm not even going to discuss it on this one. So we're just going to be looking at the combined fuel trim. Okay, so all you're going to do, click on that one. Have the little box pop up. You can uncheck the box if you don't want to see it every time, and then continue. You see the bold numbers. This is where it's getting the plots at from his particular log, and he's got this. On this particular log, he had the stock settings here for the open loop thresholds. Okay, so he did pretty good as far as getting all those plots with the stock settings there. But if he had had it at a higher level, he might have had some of these down here with bold numbers as well, because it may have kept it in closed loop. Got a little bit more of the table here plotted out as far as where everything needs to be. So same rule applies. I'm trying to get everything in a smooth area. Um, I may I may raise some of these up, some, whatever the case, or just leave it as it is. Just go ahead and copy the ECU. If you need to come back and fine tune it because things aren't 0% or close to it, or the drivability is not all that great, you can always come back and manually adjust these. The purpose of doing what I'm doing here is, instead of having to go in and manually adjust each individual cell one by one, you get a 20-30 minute log and you plug in all these all at one time, and, and and you know, relieves you of all the hassle of having to deal with one cell at a time. But that being said, with this one here as well, also once again, remember to go back and change your open loop thresholds back to from the adjustment back to the stock or where you had them. There will be different scenarios where you may not have it at stock value. You may have to adjust them to keep it in closed loop a little bit longer, but that's not the purpose of this discussion here. It's just for trying to get your crews dialed in. But anyway, that's it. Once you have that done, that's it for your crews. Then you can go back to dealing with your idle or your wide open throttle, whatever the case. Of course, if you change parts around, you may have to go through this process again. But in real time, make it quick and easy. I've got my log here. Right click, map comp adjust. I'll do my plots, use template, copy to ECU, or I've got my log. Right click, SDVE adjust, combine field trim. Okay, got my plots, copy to ECU, done. Other than just going back and changing that back. So that's it. So very quick, very easy. It's probably the easiest part of tuning with Ecmlink that there is. So, but anyway, if you guys have any questions, give me a shout. That's it for this one. So y'all have a good one.